What's going on, good people of the internet? It's time for Panel to Panel, a podcast where a bunch of folks shoot the breeze and talk about comic books and such. We are back once again this week. This week is going to be fun, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folks alike, because it is going to be our review, as we talked about last week, of Matt Reeves' Batman. Because, man, this movie is a trip, and I called in the troops for this one. Because not only do we have our residential Batman expert with the afro, Travis Tucker here. Say hi, Travis.
How y'all doing?
All right. We also called in some recruits from outside in these streets. First off, from the Gotham Outsiders, a Batman Bookclub podcast, we have TJ. How you doing today? I'm pretty good. I got my caffeine. Had me some Cold Stone earlier. I'm feeling real good. It's gonna be a good night. Did you actually make them, or are they like Starbucks K-Pops? Ooh, fancy. Okay, fair enough. And then a random addition that TJ just pulled out of thin air that I'm super excited for is DC Comics columnist and insert credit podcast host Alex Jaffe. How you doing tonight, man?
In the immortal words of the Riddler, hey guys.
All right, folks. Don't forget that you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all those great places. Everywhere except for SoundCloud, you can find us because we don't fuck with SoundCloud. And don't forget you follow this podcast on Twitter at PTP_podcast. You can check out all these amazing folks at their links that will be located in the show notes. We will have those there, and they will shout them at the end of the podcast. So get ready for that fun stuff. Before we dive into the Batman, we're going to have a little bit of fun because Batman Associated News decided to drop out of thin air as we're about to record. A little bit came out earlier in the day, and then this we decided to drop in too. The first one was that actor Fallon Smythe is going to be playing Harper Row in the upcoming CW Gotham Knights TV show. And then the other one that dropped into my lap, where did it go on my sheet? Does anyone else have the Carrie Kelly one? Because it's not on my screen. Now there it is. The Navia Robinson has been cast as Carrie Kelly. And Travis, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this old girl from Raven's Home?
Carrie Kelly?
Yeah, the girl who's playing Carrie Kelly. Isn't this old girl from Raven's Home? That's why she's not coming back for season 5. Oh, that's funny. Because there's been this whole controversy this past 3 weeks since the trailer came out for Raven's Home season 5 on Disney Channel that everybody but Raven's second kid is coming with is gone from the show, and she's coming back to San Francisco to live with her dad.
Hold on. The That's So Raven revival is up to season 5?
Yes, it is. It was surprisingly good because Raven put her money behind it.
Disney has not stopped putting
That's So Raven.
They have not stopped putting Raven in front of a camera in at least 2 decades.
Yeah.
Well, no, Raven took a hot minute off. She stepped away for a long time, handled her business, and then she was on The View for a while. Wow, this show officially has more seasons than That's So Raven. That's actually kind of hysterical because That's So Raven only had 4 seasons. Wow, I did not know that. So yeah, no. Apparently, the big argument has been Raven's only taking one of her children with her to go live with her dad, and they're bringing in a bunch of new characters and stuff like that. So this explains a lot. But the idea of a black Carrie Kelly interests me first a live action interpretation of Carrie Kelly, because the original rumor back in the day was Jenna Malone was going to play her in Batman v Superman. We saw what happened with that. I remember the MTV Movie Awards. They like had her like said she was playing Robin, and like everybody was like, "What? Wait, what?" And she looked so scared for her life as she walked out on stage. But no, the idea. I know for a hot minute I've been kind of neglecting to talk about the Gotham Knights show that was announced, where it's like apparently it takes place after the death of Bruce Wayne, and now they're dealing with the fallout. And I don't know about this one, kids. I don't know about this.
I mean, at the end of season 1, they're gonna find out Bruce Wayne's not really dead, right? That's how this works. That's how basic narrative structure works.
I mean, more than either season 1 or season 2, they're gonna have to have him come back at some point.
Yeah,
Oh no,
that's terrifying.
I don't know whether to be relieved or disappointed that I haven't heard anything about Cassandra Cain yet.
Disappointed.
Same, because it's like you don't know if you want her to be included in this, and like
if you're not going to do Cass right, don't do Cass at all. That's
right.
Yo, and plot device Cass from Birds of Prey has been done, so I need body reading. Nobody has my hands level Cass.
But dude, that was Harper Row in that movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I know.
Don't you dare!
Don't curse it like that.
No.
But no, I like if we're being real about this, I like as we've learned from Lois and Clark, and OC doesn't necessarily mean it can be a bad thing. Though I still think that like the OC that is Jordan on Lois and Clark is a horrible concept. But whatever.
Fuck Dean Cain.
I think Jordan's cool.
It's very weird that with the hype around John right now, they're like, hey, John doesn't have powers, the OC does. And I'm like, so have I've only heard about it in passing.
It's more like John has John in the comics personality, and Jordan has John from the comics power. That's John.
Yeah. What? Why are we so hell bent, whether it's Lucas Grabeel or now this, to just like have other people dress as Connor Kent but not actually give us Connor Kent? Like,
not to mention Supergirl and DC Superhero Girls, who took Connor Kent's whole '90s steez, which
now, don't get me wrong,
kind of a good look for her.
Yeah, that was pretty badass. Like, because I've actually seen a few of those episodes, and like, don't get me wrong, I love having Connor on Titans right now, but him sleeping with Blackfire was too far. Like,
really?
Oh, Travis, you weren't there for that?
No. I'm not relaying the fact that it happened. I'm relaying that this is where it was too far for you, not where in episode 2 Dick had clearly had sex with Dove already and no one knew about it.
That's fine.
Wow. All right.
Bro, it's a teen drama. Like, it was gonna happen.
Yeah, and because of that, they be slinging genitals on that show. I'm not surprised anyone fucks anyone on that show.
I was so taken aback when I turned on season 3, and season 3 started like really solid, and then like they rushed the Red Hood stuff, and then it's like, oh, Connor's like messing around with Blackfire, even though they hyped up Blackfire at the end of season 2, like she was about to be a banger, and I'm like, what is going on? But we're getting Brother Blood next season, so I'm gonna hold out one more season. If I don't get Tim Drake in a costume next season, I'm throwing hands. But that's where I'm gonna leave that. All right. I'm hoping because if I have to see fucking small little skimpy ass Red Hood one more season, I'm gonna be irritated. But right. All right. So that I wish I could mimic the organ. Bow, 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 bow. Like that track was in my head all day after this movie. Like Matt Reeves created an anthem that just is there and now synonymous with this version of Batman that is just so powerful.
Yeah.
Like I just from first impressions alone, and what we're gonna go on the table. First impressions alone with this movie, I went in. If you listen to earlier episodes, I talked about it where I didn't want to see this. I didn't care. I was like, I've seen enough like middle-aged white men sling bat suits. I've had enough. And then I saw Zoe Kravitz, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I saw the 2021 fandom trailer, and I was like, okay. You convinced me Colin Farrell isn't actually Colin Farrell. I will give you a one viewing. And then I go in over the weekend and I was floored. I was genuinely floored that you could actually give me what I could honestly say is probably the most comic accurate Batman live action.
Absolutely.
For like a year two, like long Halloweenish time period Batman we've ever had. Like I will say, was I the most happy about a couple of different things? Or like them shoving the Riddler up Calendar Man's ass? No. But like we can move past that. Like there's so much about this movie that is so solid. And we're going to talk about the idiocy of the gatekeeper culture later when it came to this movie. But in terms of just the movie itself, I think that other than The Dark Knight, because I hate Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, but I will have to admit the Dark Knight is a cinematic masterpiece. I will say this is probably my favorite Batman movie and probably my favorite Batman interpretation I've ever seen. Now, in terms of camp and just a fun time, Batman and Robin will always be the top of that list. I will fight whoever says that. But in terms...
word up, Mask of the Phantasm. Animation,
we're in live action town. We're in live action town.
Okay,
but like,
let's not disrespect animation.
Right, of course. But like, in terms of live action, campy, fun time, Batman and Robin. But in terms of a live action, gritty, long Halloween type story, Matt Reeves has cemented himself in this court. Travis,
a campy Batman movie. Batman 66 already exists.
That's fair. That's fair. Travis, my Afro-wearing friend, you've been in my DMs excited about this movie for a hot minute.
All right, so first of all, I would like to fucking expose James because he had no faith in this great movie.
I had no faith.
If you scroll back in our panel-to-panel episodes, we have that receipt on motherfucking recording.
I'll admit it. I said that. I said I didn't want this movie to exist. I didn't want other than Zoe Kravitz. I didn't care about this movie.
And your ass was wrong.
You're right. I will admit that this movie was a banger. I'm willing to admit that.
All right. As someone who has literally fallen in and out of love with Batman my entire fucking life, this was the best Batman movie I have ever seen, as far as live action is concerned. Because the animated brings some heavy hitters in the mix, but they should get their own respect another time. This, in my honest opinion, and I will be so bold to say it, is the best Batman movie we've ever got, and exactly the movie that superhero movies as a genre, I think, needed.
No disagreement.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. What's cool about the Batman is that it's clearly made by people who like the Batman.
Right.
Like, you get so many projects from Tim Burton, who is or was, depending on your perspective, a great director, to Christopher Nolan. All of them are like, what can I say through the lens of Batman? Which is like using these like symbols to like try to create a movie in their own sort of that fits their own sort of oeuvre. Like the Batman of the 89 movies is your basic Tim Burton protagonist, this kind of like weirdo fish out of water guy who's doesn't really fit into society. Christopher Nolan was making this big kind of Bush era war on terror point. Matt Reeves is like, what's Batman really about? Like, what is Batman for? It's called The Batman because it's not about Batman the man. It's about Batman the idea. And seeing that explored in a movie is something we actually have never seen before. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes this movie, I think, more interesting than all those previous efforts.
Right. I'll die on this hill that if given the right direction and the time and he didn't punk out, Ben Affleck probably would have sold it on the best Batman and the best Bruce Wayne. Because he walked into that gala with the suave needed to be Bruce Wayne, but he didn't come off like a crazy person when he was Batman like Christian Bale did. He came off like someone who was a terror, someone who could be a superhero and be the fear that could be there when needed, depending on the director. Because if you take both, like, say what you will about Whedon's a freaking idiot. But if you go back to the Whedon cut, some of those lighter tone versions of Bruce we saw actually showed that Ben Affleck could do both. So
yeah, that just save one person scene, that was the best part of the whole movie.
Yes. Like, you actually convinced me that Ben Affleck was worth continuing his story, and thankfully we're getting one more thing with him in Flash. But I will admit that with Pattinson, I was skeptical as hell. I was skeptical. Like, the man even admitted he held his wand as a gun in Harry Potter. Like, I was skeptical. But he came out on top and put himself up on, like, in the ranking with the rest of the greats here, and I will wholeheartedly admit that.
Yeah, as far as a young Batman goes, there's nobody who's ever been better.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I with this Bruce, like when I think young Bruce, I think inches away from literally beating someone to death, and I definitely got that vibe from Battinson.
Yeah,
you keep coining that phrase in a way. Right. Like, he just needed someone to give a shit. Like, and I think Matt Reeves could have been the one. I really feel like Ben Affleck and Matt Reeves could have been the golden goose that DC needed to restructure their universe. But, like, it just didn't work. But it's cool.
He wouldn't have been right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is clearly a young Batman story. It wouldn't have been right for that that world-weary Ben Affleck who's been beaten down that we see in those Snyder films. It just wouldn't have fit in with what this whole movie is about. That really, the journey that Ben Affleck's Batman goes on from Batman v Superman to Justice League is basically the same story that Matt Reeves tells here, except Superman serves the same function as, say, the combined influence of Selina and Gordon and even Riddler, convincing Batman that just working for vengeance is not the way to serve his mission. It's not the way to make a positive change. That there has to be that you have to set an example for others, and it's not just you can't just scare people your way into saving the city. There has to be something more to that. And really, I mean, the movie was 3 hours long, so I can't say that he did it in shorter time than Zack Snyder did, but I think he did it by condensing the whole thing to Batman's world, which keeps it more elegant, in my opinion.
All right. Yeah, that's a great way to put that. In terms of like, I'm gonna be real controversial up in here. Like, all praise to the queen that is Michelle, and like we'll give Patience. I mean, Halle Berry her like her honorary mention, but like keep her out the equation of Selena's. But if we're being 100% real, I think Zoe just sold me on like literally the best Catwoman we've ever had. I'm purposely putting Eartha and Halle in their own box, and then we're gonna leave them alone. Like they're holy. We don't mess with them because Halle.
No. Let everyone hear that only Eartha is holy. Holly can get all the smoke.
Yeah, look, guys.
Like
Zoe
Zoe
Kravitz is
was
the
amazing.
best. She is incredible in that movie. She is a perfect Catwoman.
Yes.
But there's like almost never been a bad Catwoman actress, and I am including Halle Berry in that. Yeah, I'm look, the Halle Berry the Halle Berry Catwoman movie is a whole different conversation, but you can't disrespect Halle Berry as an actor. She did.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying in terms of acting her ass off.
Yeah.
She took what she had from that movie and did what she could. So I'm trying to put Eartha and Halle in their own box. They're not here. We don't mess with them. They're holy. In terms of Anne, Michelle, and Zoe.
Michelle Pfeiffer is a goddamn champion. Rewatch that Hello There scene. Just the way she just the way she works that whip through the whole movie. She is incredible. There's been so many great Catwomen, and I'm not going to say Zoe Kravitz is the best of them, but she is worthy of the mantle. She's one of them. She eats up absolutely every scene she's in. She feels like she jumped right out of the Frank Miller and Dave Mazzucchelli comics. And like I was talking to TJ earlier about just the raw sexual chemistry that's on screen, and TJ's like, "No, there wasn't. Robert Pattinson didn't give her anything." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right."
That's not what they mean when he means by sexual tension.
Yeah,
they don't have to bone for there to be tension, TJ.
Right.
cool.
I don't say I don't like Anne Hathaway. I don't like Anne Hathaway as a Catwoman.
Yes, this is the best written Catwoman story that we've seen in the movie.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Nah, like,
You touched on a really good point there that like more than any other Batman film we've seen before this movie kind of introduces you with the understanding like you already know who these people are. We don't have
Right,
to re-explain who Batman and Catwoman are.
It took a page out of like I hate I don't really want to bring it up, but they took a page out of Homecoming's book where it's like, yo, we've done this dance. You've seen the pearls and the shots and the non like everything before. Like we'll reference it, we'll mess around with it to the point that we literally change all of Martha Wayne's entire backstory because why the fuck not? And
that's the other point. I
should probably say spoiler alert, y'all. If y'all ain't seen Batman, that's on y'all.
A lot of the cues in this movie come from Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Batman Earth 1.
Yes.
From the Martha Kane backstory to like everything they do with the Riddler, to the whole like Alfred being this like security guy who trained Bruce. Honestly, a little bit of that Telltale game, sure, with the like we can't trust Thomas Wayne. But like Jeff Johns still kind of has his fingerprints all over the like DC cinematic universe. Like
sadly,
the whole Aquaman story came from Jeff Johns' run. The whole Shazam story came from Jeff Johns' run. Like these, like it's very clear that Jeff Johns has spent the past decade plus redeveloping these characters and story arcs so they could fit like a more cinematic story, like creating a blueprint for a movie. And like we're still seeing that pay off in The Batman, which was kind of strange and surprising to me.
Well, yeah. I think maybe the romance didn't work because I'm gonna be honest with you. I love the movie, but the romance for me felt a little weird. But the way that I kind of I guess self-processed or mental gymnastics my way through it was that it like Bruce at the time in year 2 was off his rocker, doesn't understand his own feelings, let alone how to project good feelings or any feelings. There's only wake up, put on my suit, go fight some crime. I need the facts, period. You know what I mean? So other than Alfred, who he constantly rejects, Zoe kind of was an obscure, I don't know, treatment that he received. Because otherwise, what does he get? You know, he gets fear and violence all the time.
If we want to go deeper about it and dive into the subtext of the movie, for like even though like Selina has no understanding of it other than she sees Batman as a hero and for what he's done, and for like even going so deep into her history that he did. For me, if we're looking from Bruce's angle, my man's is over here finding out his entire life is a lie, finding out all this over here, and then coming around the corner and finding out that like him and Selina are almost kindred spirits, where they both belong in the shitty daddy club, where it's like they didn't know all this stuff and like now they're finding all this out, and like Selina knew about like Falcone, but she didn't know how deep it actually was. And then Bruce learns everything that he does, and you see that Bruce could have like made that very selfish choice. They set that up from Bruce's perspective, not like because from Selina's point of view, it's very much like you just saved all these people, you don't need to deal with this. Come on, let's go. And like from Bruce's angle, it's very much like someone's giving me an out, and he hasn't learned the lessons yet to know that he doesn't need an out. He makes that hard choice, but he hasn't learned the lessons yet to that he doesn't need an out. So I very much enjoyed the romance from what we got because it was very much of he found a kindred spirit but couldn't convey that information to her, so he fought tooth and nail for her. Like that scene where he literally rips the gun out of her hand when she almost like does the thing to the cop. Like that was so powerful to me because he doesn't want to see her throw it all away. So it's like you see that perfect alignment when it comes to Falcone later, where he does it again and goes, "Don't be like him. Don't throw it all away just to get the vengeance."
John Turturro was so great as Falcone.
Bro, I was gonna get to that. I love him in this movie, but every time I flipped my brain, I'm just like, I couldn't just get the visual of him being peed on by a transformer out of my head. I kid you not. It was
John
just like
Turturro in this movie reminded me a lot of Christopher Walken as Max Schreck in Batman Returns. In that it's like not at all costumed villain who like just magically steals every scene he walks into. Like he's the best villain in this movie by far, and there's some heavy hitters.
she's been through a lot.
She collects strays, TJ. She explained it.
Right. You gotta read the subtext, my guy. Like oh, you like the slow burn. Okay.
Oh no, that's not Gotham, bro.
Let's make
Gotham takes years to burn
for TJ.
All right. But so yeah, it's very much like, so we gotten through like Bruce and Selina. What I want to give special kudos to is my man Commissioner Gordon, because my man,
yeah,
right, like
the strongest relationship in this whole movie is between Batman and Commissioner Gordon.
Like I would have never thought Jeffrey Wright could have pulled this kind of performance, but then he does.
He's so good.
Like that, my favorite moment was like when like Bruce got blown up by the bomb, and like all the cops are around him, and he's ready to go out swinging, and like Gordon has to catch him. Like, don't do it. I'm trying to save your ass. Don't do this.
We have never seen Batman and Gordon this tight before. Like, if anything, it's always been subtext, but to see this, it's mind blowing. Absolutely welcome. Kind of reminds me a little bit of their relationship in Teen Titans Go, but I don't hate it. They're best
like screw Christian Bale and Gary Oldman. Like this was like that moment where like they're like the chief gave him a minute alone with him, and he's like, "Bro, you gotta punch me in the face.
Like,
take this shit and go."
Like they don't even have to say it, but there was clearly this moment where like Batman saved Gordon's life and just like earned his respect forever, and like just like he is like they're partners through this whole movie. They're Riggs and Murtaugh.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm down for it.
The answer is yes.
Like Bruce needs a daddy. Bruce needs a daddy. I'm all for it. Like get it in there.
I'm going to make a slightly related plug right now. If you like Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, he is also amazing as Batman in the criminally under-listened to Batman the Audio Adventures, available now on HBO Max. One of my favorite recent Batman stories.
I love it so much, but like, why does it have to be audio-based material on HBO Max? Like, I was cool with the first little bit of it on Spotify. It was so good.
I do not control the distribution channels. But yeah, it's a great story with an incredible cast. And if you have access to HBO Max, you should absolutely listen to that. It's 10 episodes. They're all less than an hour. It's great.
Very solid.
Yeah. Yes. That's
the whole scene had me so stressed.
That's the best scene in the movie. Because Batman and Riddler are both looking across the room at each other. Each of them have built the other into this like impossible totem in their minds, and both of them just kind of realize at the same time that the other isn't the person they expected. That they're both just like flawed humans and not this like great enemy or this great ally. And it's just this like they're looking across a glass, but they're also looking at a mirror, and it's really the centerpiece of the whole thing thematically. And I just love it to death.
That whole scene was so beautifully written, in my opinion, because I just remember having a freaking panic attack. I was there with my daughter and my buddy, and you just hear Riddler go, Bruce Wayne! Bruce Wayne!
My heart.
And then there was this moment where I just look over at my buddy, and I'm like, oh my God, he doesn't know. He doesn't know that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Oh, the game has changed! And then the whole thing was like, because yes, they were like broken and flawed human beings, but I think ultimately Bruce kind of pitied Riddler because they were doing the same job, but Riddler was doing it incredibly incorrectly.
Yeah, but Riddler also pitied Batman, that he thought he was like, oh, you're.
And they were kindred spirits. He thought they were kindred spirits. The idea that they were looking for vengeance in any way possible. Where, like, he said at the beginning, where it was like, yo, you did all the work that I couldn't do.
Right.
That line right there.
Blastering. You were the body, I was the brain. But like, just like the disappointment that this was that Bruce had not caught on to it, and was just kind of like solving these as if they were like riddles to stop a crime. Just turning the whole idea of Riddler on his head. Like, why does Riddler leave clues at the scene of a crime? That's kind of the smartest thing they did with the whole character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Like, this is the last thing I'm ever going to get to say to Jim Gordon as an equal and a partner. So, yeah, that was his way of saying goodbye. He'll be like, you've been making an idiot out of me this whole time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it just, I think my favorite scene with them entirely, besides the cop room scene, was the catching penguin. Because it showed the humility of like, maybe we did fuck up. Maybe we did need to go back to the drawing board and find the solution. And when it clicked, they both just headed off like it was an episode of Law and Order and got it done. Like, it very much felt like they were able to, like, rather than just beating like Colin Farrell within an inch of his life and trying to find an answer like Christian Bale would have done, they sat there and figured out, hey, there's a whole website here that we could have punched in, found the solution, and then Riddler leads you off in the next direction. And it really opened that like that new like avenue for them and gave them that next level of partnership.
And that's like exactly the secret to like the difference between a good Batman story and a great Batman story. The idea that like Batman is not this unbeatable god of strength and intellect who is perfectly prepared for every possible scenario. Batman fucks up sometimes. It's he has flaws, and sometimes something gets the better of him, and he is able to overcome that. What makes Batman great isn't that he's the smartest or the strongest, it's his determination, and this is a movie that really gets.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Because see, I enjoy that so much more because rather than Morgan Freeman going, hey, your gloves can make kinetic waves in your cape and you can do this. They said, yo, no, we're going to pull this man up like he's a Mattel toy or a Hasbro toy and humble him. And no, sometimes Batman needs to rely on his like actual human tech rather than some fantasy tech, because that was always the one thing from the Nolan movies that, as much as Nolan wanted to swear up and down as his defense of why Bane didn't use Venom or why Bane was a white guy or yada yada, of why, like that entire plot line of like why he did Bane the way he did, of saying, oh, I wanted him to be more realistic, or I wanted to have a more grounded, realistic universe for this Batman. You didn't do that. You still have made him drive a tank. You still made him have all this crazy sonar technology like he was the real Batman. Matt Reeves said this man's gonna pull up in a flight suit and donk himself on the head and learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, I love that.
And that felt so much more realistic than like Bruce Wayne flying down the city and with the scarecrow gas going off and everyone's like running in fear of the bat. And, granted, that was a cool visual, but you can't have your cake and eat it too of the we'll make it realistic but also have fantasy. You gotta choose one, dang flabbit. Like, Mm-hmm.
I get it. I do. Right.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
He's becoming a more legendary figure. He's going from
Mhm.
like a cryptid to a legend, is what's kind of happening. There you
Like
go.
that suit's gonna evolve, and I
There
bet
was
you
what?
Matt Reeves is gonna find a way to make like stretchable wings to
Yeah.
make it more look like it could be part of the cape rather than just a suit. But he has to learn. Like he literally drove what looked like a souped up Camaro to chase down freaking like Penguin through the streets.
It was
Like
perfect.
he didn't have a tank off rip. He had a jacked up turbine in the back of a Camaro. Like,
But on that same hand, like, you know, shotgun blasts have force. Yeah, he doesn't get hit in the flesh with the bullets, but he just pretty much got punched in the gut by Mike Tyson and needs a moment.
right, like that was one of my favorite scenes where like he got banged in the fucking chest and he had to be saved. He didn't just get up and clock dude again. Granted, there was some pistol shots he took like a fucking boss, but that shotgun, he was like, that.
Yeah, like, well,
Motherfucker.
in every other Batman movie, Batman shrugs that kind of stuff off and just keeps on going.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. We gotta stop Bad God. We gotta stop Bad God. Bad God needs to go.
I get it. I absolutely. I mean, he's Batman. He's not Squirrel. That, that's fair. It didn't bother me, but it is a fair criticism.
Yeah, it's a fair criticism.
There is one scene that did kind of bother me, and it's the one at the very end, with the Riddler at Arkham. Like,
Let's talk about that.
Oh,
Let's
yeah,
talk about
please,
that.
please.
Oh, okay, so set up. And while I'm like, and I will like speak on it where you have Riddler pulling up to Arkham, and then we get the reveal of dude from Eternals is going to be the Joker, and I gotta phrase this right. While
it
I
didn't.
have said multiple times on this show that I am so sick of Joker's goddamn face in my Batman stories, and I will even quote fucking I can I cannot I will quote Jason Inman from Geek History Lesson where he says we need a break from Joker the same way we had a break from Joker back when Bane was king during that era where you just did not see Joker for like a year during Night's End and Nightfall and all that. you didn't see hella high water of that man. We need a Joker bereavement of multiple movies or even years of comics where Joker just goes away. But we're never going to get that. So if you had to give me anybody that was a shot in the dark of could possibly be a banger of a Joker, bravo the fuck oh. Now, granted, I would have liked this guy for Riddler over Paul Dano. I would have liked this guy as Riddler over Paul Dano.
He did not need to be in this movie.
He did. Like, I will wholeheartedly agree with you. I will wholeheartedly agree with you.
Like there was no reason for this scene to be in this thing. What are you selling people on what the next Batman movie is going to be? People are going to see the next Batman movie no matter what. There doesn't need to be like a Nick Fury style teaser in there. It just felt like such a studio decision and just like a scene that did not belong in this like story where every scene had this intentionality behind it to drive to like a bigger story about Batman. Like this is the most about Batman movie we've ever seen. And it just felt like, oh, wait till the next one. We're building a universe. Yeah.
Right.
Because they're building towards like the Arkham Asylum spin-off or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so here was my gripe, since we're in the same region. The scene wasn't necessary. I agree 1,000% with that.
Yes,
but
most definitely.
if the scene had to be there, why not, I don't know, have someone who doesn't bring this weird Tim Burton, Jack Nicholson Joker vibe to the whole realism that we're dealing with? You know what I mean? If we had, I don't know, anybody with a Spanish accent, considering we just watched Batman shoot up Venom, I would have been out of my seat.
Was that Venom? Or was
I thought it was just adrenaline. I figured it was just a shot of adrenaline to get him up off his shot.
Last I checked, young Batman likes drugs.
He likes drugs, but I figured it was just adrenaline to keep the realism. I think it was Venom.
I feel like that's a bit of a stretch by the Easter egg hunters.
Yeah.
That would be me.
That doesn't mean anything. Like, come on, bro. As someone who used to work in pharmaceuticals, bro,
it's more so like, what else has Batman ever shot up when he was that young? It was Venom.
I don't know.
Batman you could Venom on it for sure, but
Batman Venom was not really a young Batman story, though.
Yeah. So, like, it's possible, but I don't know. Like, I agree. I will 100% agree that, like, I was very much in a place of, I didn't need this, but you might have given me a banger of a person because, like, in terms of someone who could carry a villain role in a Batman movie, I very much thought that Barry Keoghan could have been a Riddler. I really thought he could have been a Riddler figure, like bowler hat, sunglasses, pulling up, being a bad bitch, doing the work, versus this weird like version of Paul Dano we got, which I'm a big fan of what we got.
But I like what we got too.
I really feel like if we're going more of a like, we're gonna merge the fantasy with the realism a little bit, like sort of how Nolan used to do, Barry could have been a really good Riddler. But if we're gonna give him a shot as fucking Joker, hey yo, here's what I'm gonna say about people playing Joker. If freaking Cameron Monaghan can be the person to save Gotham, the TV show, as Jerome, then I'll give anybody a shot to play Joker. Because Cameron Monaghan had my heart on Shameless and then walked over and tore off his own face on Gotham. I'll give anybody a chance.
Even in Jedi Fallen Order.
Well, Well, no, I'm saying Gotham was horrible. I'm saying like that show was dead, and Cameron Monaghan walked in and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna pick y'all up and we gonna run through this finish line." That's what I'm saying. Like, if anybody can show that anybody can play Joker, Like they just had a black Joker be on Batwoman recently. Like anybody can do it anymore. It doesn't fucking matter. Like literally, if Barry walks in and does a really good performance, cool. That's where I'm at. But like, I didn't need Joker in this movie. That's where I'm at.
You ever see that episode of Man Seeking Woman where Eric Andre plays the Joker? That's pretty good. Look that up. I think it's like episode 8 or something. He falls into a vat of acid and literally becomes the Joker. It's great.
Dear God. Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Whatever.
I mean, sure, as long as we never get another Jared Leto where like
it's a Joker, baby.
Where he's tattooed over his like acid scars, I'll do anything. Like,
yeah,
like literally,
it's damaged on his forehead. So
I will like you could literally just hand Mark Hamill a purple coat. And I will tell, hell, you can hand Kevin Michael Richardson a purple coat, and I will take that over Jared Leto. Like, I will do anything to have like anything but Jared Leto. You could hand TJ a purple coat, and it would be better than Jared Leto. That's not TJ. He'd probably be a great Joker, but like I'm saying in general, like anybody could play Joker, and I would tolerate it over Jared Leto.
Now I'm casting TJ as Cullen Rowe.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to talk about your standards.
Are you telling me right here you would not have sex with Heath Ledger Joker?
He looked like he never showers.
No, I ain't messing with Heath. I'm gonna go hang out with Jack Nicholson. I'm sorry, I can't. Like, I'm sorry. He'll take care of me. I'm not worried about that shit. Like, but like, TJ, when you talk about your standards, you over here messing with that motherfucker? Are you okay? Like, nah, man.
Okay.
You've disappointed
There
me.
is something I would like to talk about.
Go for it.
That's been keeping me up at nights. There is a scene where they arrest the Riddler in that diner, and they open his wallet. He has two IDs. One says Edward Nashton. The other says Patrick Parker. Now, every like Easter egg roundup article that you'll find online, including the one on DCComics.com, by the way, will say that, oh, this is an allusion to the fact that the Riddler went by the name Patrick Parker at some point in the comics. None of them cite the source of this. The best I was able to find was that it dates back to a random unnamed Wikipedia editor adding it to the Riddler's Wikipedia article in November of 2013. I have been through hundreds and hundreds of comics. I have been through hours and hours of footage. As far as I know, some guy just made this shit up. And
oh my God.
Like, looking for an alias for the Riddler, just grabbed it off Wikipedia. And the most fucked up thing about that is that because it's in the movie, now it's canon.
No. Now it's canon.
Why?
Yes.
Right, like that idea just
I need it to be just a meme. I need it to be just a meme.
But I am pretty damn sure at this point it did not exist anywhere but Wikipedia until this goddamn movie.
I'm so disappointed in our culture now, like by giving that information. Like
memes are the most powerful. The memes, Jack.
I'm so disappointed in our culture
I
now.
mean,
Like,
if you really want to stretch your arms out of place like you're fucking Plastic Man, you could say that it fits the theme of like Riddler being this whole like emblem of internet culture and how like everyone is Riddler and we create our own identities.
Gosh,
but,
that's
yeah.
Monkey D. Luffy stretching right there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not great. Ashton's been his canonical name since like 1986. Yeah, that's an alias.
Yeah, that's an alias.
He changed his name to Enigma.
Yeah, Enigma.
He wasn't born Enigma. That's not like
right. Like if there was a legacy of people called the Enigmas, we have a problem.
Yeah. All right, it's fine.
But no, like now. Here's what messed with me was during his big reveal, like live stream thing, where he talks about like the corruption and the reporter. The reporter's name was Edward Elliot, and while that can be an allusion to Hush, which that's what everyone wants Matt Reeves' next one to be is Hush, which right, it even says Hush on the damn
screen, man.
And I'm like, yo, if y'all really straight up just go, yo, like the Riddler is like Thomas Elliott's son, like dad, even though in the comics it's Roger Elliott, not Edward Elliott. That was a clever little stunt, but it very much felt like, yo, if they fuck this up only to allude to Hush, I'm gonna be irritated. Now, making Riddler an orphan like the way they did and making that parallel, because funnily enough, Nolan tried that too, where he tried to make like an orphan metaphor between Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Christian Bale, which everyone thought was cute. No, we reversed it. We flipped it on its head and said, what if the villain was the orphan the same way Bruce was? And we rose it up from the ground up, and that was such a great way to do that.
You're not an orphan. You had $1 billion and you lived in a mansion.
Right.
That was really.
That was so powerful.
Yeah.
Because
your parents, you had money.
The whole movie is about Batman trying to bury his Bruce Wayne identity, that he's just all Batman all the time. Like, to wit, this is the first ever live action Batman movie where he does not appear in a tuxedo at a gala. That is intentional.
Yes.
And like he's just like completely burying the idea that he's Bruce Wayne, and Alfred's trying to pull him out. And what Selina and what Alfred and what Riddler both like show him is that there's no escaping the fact that you're Bruce Wayne. That's part of who you are. That's where you come from. And you can't just ignore that. You have to recognize that and deal with it. And only then are you going to be able to be a better person.
Speaking of Alfred, that scene where they sort of mimic other times where like the manor's blown up and Alfred's taking a hit, and then they flip the script again, and the nurse lady, the maid, says it happened an hour ago. My heart sank.
Very watching.
I was like, wow, you flipped the whole script. Because we've seen it in Arkham Origins. We've seen it in the movies. Like, we've seen this song and dance before. But for you to go, nah, man, like, fucking Gollum's been in the hospital for an hour. I was like, hold up.
As long as we're recasting roles here, Andy Serkis should have been Man-Bat. They should have held out. Like Andy Serkis, he belongs to weird little guys. We don't have a lot of actors who are great at playing weird little guys.
You know, as a diehard Lord of the Rings fan, I fucking understand where you're coming from, but he was pretty good as Alfred too.
I'll do you one better. Andy Serkis should have been Albert Wesker. Because Andy Serkis having the puppet in his hand would have been
that's a very balanced needle thing. But no, I want him creeping around like a weird animal.
Fair enough. I feel like that would have been really cool.
He comes from working with Andy Serkis in the Apes movies. And that's
or Andy Serkis as Zaz would have been kind of savage. I feel like Andy Serkis as Zaz would have been pretty interesting.
Hey, I don't know. I don't think Zaz has ever been.
Yeah, Zaz is not.
If there's anybody that I just thought of that, Andy might have made a good Hugo. I really that's kind of hit my head. Andy
Hugo
Serkis as
Strange?
Hugo Strange. I could have seen it. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Alfred
Because
was
we both
sacrificed
Batman stuff.
for more scenes with Gordon.
Yeah.
I think the idea was like not showing you stuff you already know. The like core relationship of the Dark Knight trilogy was
Yeah,
between Bruce Wayne and Alfred. There was no
like
reason
we had Michael Caine up his butt the entire time. We
Yeah.
got a break from that here. Granted, we got that little bit of time. Hell, that speech Alfred gave him from the hospital bed was what we needed to reconnect Bruce and Alfred, because that, like, Bruce was ready to say fuck you, Alfred, and leave. Like, he was ready to check out, but Alfred went, no. Screw what Falcone said. Yo dad made a mistake. He was trying to protect your mama, and he made a mistake. And that was powerful to me. That he was like, I was trying to protect you because your daddy made a mistake, versus what Falcone said of, oh, your daddy was just a crazy, corrupt person, which I thought was really cool.
One of the most interesting things about this movie is that it doesn't really resolve who killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. There are these three different theories we see that could it have been Falcone? Could it have been Maroni? And like, who was Thomas Wayne? How culpable was he? And that's not something Bruce gets to solve. It's
right.
It's just kind of hanging over its head. I do hope they leave it open like that. And it comes to my next point, which is I really think this series is building up to Court of Owls. This whole thing is that Gotham and the idea of Batman is much bigger than Bruce Wayne thinks, and that there's this systemic corruption in the city that he doesn't even know about. And where that leads is that, like, the ultimate villain of Gotham City, that the powers that control Gotham itself, that lies right into the court thing, the being unfamiliar in your own home. And I feel like if this is a trilogy, that's where it's headed.
Especially because, yeah.
Goddamn, yes.
The labyrinth, like, because you talked about that on one of your recent episodes, where that labyrinth, how it flipped upside down. Because if anyone could, like, because the cinematography in this movie, which needs to be spoken about, the cinematography of this movie was so well done. The shots, the changes, the fact that we had the eyeballs camera doing so many cool different variations out of what it could do, and on top of that, you see that, like, what Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did with the labyrinth in Court of Owls. You could really do some shit with that camera.
I would love to see how they cinematically.
In terms of a court, though, my biggest beef is if we do a court without a Grayson, they're gonna be like, Bruce was being groomed to be the next.
You can ditch that whole angle. That was, I think, the whole circus thing was a little bit forced.
Then if he needs a Rob. No. What I'm saying is, if we don't give him a Robin, if we don't give him a Bird, they're going to be like, okay, cool. Either we're going to force the Grayson lineage onto Bruce as, like, Bruce is the chosen one of the Owls, or they're going to say they're really going to like drill home that Lincoln March is your long lost brother. Your father was a bastard, yada, yada. They're finally going to cement that little thing that Scott Snyder pulled his punch on, and they're going to nail it to the floor.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'd love to see Robin in the series. I'd love to see some kind of sidekick show up.
Just don't have him in his 20s like all the Titans are right now.
Yeah. No, like, I remember this early interview with Robert Pattinson about Robin, and he's like, if we do Robin, I want her to be like 8. I want to be like 10. If we're going to do Robin, we're going to do Robin.
You need a kid to eat rats, damn it. Like, you need him to suffer.
No, we're not doing that. No.
If y'all haven't listened to our roast of All Star Batman and Robin, I highly recommend
that. That is fucking enough.
There's one more thing I'd like to address with this movie, and it's the absolutely bonkers criticism that this movie isn't funny, that there are no jokes in it.
That's like, that was part one. That was part one is what I want to talk about. But there's two big criticisms of this movie, and that's the first one, which is there's no humor. It's a soulless movie because we have all the Marvel fans coming in and saying this movie isn't funny. It's not enjoyable.
What movie did you?
It's a crime thriller.
It's a crime thriller, but
it's
like
a crime thriller.
One of the first scene, the first scene where Batman walks in, him and Gordon's cracking jokes about the body. Like, they're very subtle, but if anyone's who's ever watched Law and Order or like NCIS, it's very much like it's a cop show. It's very much like there's going to be soulless jokes because you're in a soulless atmosphere where everything's serious, but there will still be that brevity of humor. Hell, Circus cracked. I don't remember what specifically what it was, but Circus was cracking jokes about like, hey, you didn't want them to come, like you didn't want to go there, so I brought them here, and like those subtle things that are humor based. You have to listen for and not just, like, similar to what we're talking about with TJ of, like, subtext. You can't just be like, yo, it's not funny, I don't like it. It's very much, you have to be there in the moment and enjoy it and stop comparing it to a Marvel movie every 2 seconds. You don't
recognize a joke unless it comes from the mouth of, like, Robert Downey Jr.
How does a woman with, like, 30 cat claws and a cat costume saying she attracts strays not register as humor?
Right, like you sure it was like a lot of cats.
A lot of cat. That's great.
Right.
Just everything with Penguin clowning on Batman and Gordon,
right.
Not knowing basic Spanish. It's amazing.
No, fucking Penguin let this dude beat everybody's ass in his club. And was like, you know what? I can use you as an angle. Come back anytime. Like, that was slick. Or when he literally is handcuffed, feet and legs, in the middle of the pouring rain, and he starts waddling towards Gordon and Batman. He's like, let me out of here. It's like, that was the funniest shit. You have to actually enjoy it to talk about that shit.
There is comedy in this movie, but like, it's comedy that serves the scene and the characters and the stories. It doesn't feel superfluous. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And the fact that everything's not like drenched with it, like with this like level of disaffectation, like, oh, isn't it silly that we're all being superheroes right now? Like, it's that like Whedonification that my friend Gita Jackson wrote about for Vice, that you should all definitely check that out. If there are show notes, I will. I'll
sure, send it to me. I'll add it to the show notes.
Yeah, about how like everyone has come to write kind of like Joss Whedon style. And
now, in terms of the other topic that obviously, as a queer platform and a POC platform, we need to talk about is the fact that so many idiot people.
Here it comes.
And we can even like drag Pixar's Turning Red into this because that's a whole debacle in itself. The fact that we have people coming in here, especially because Zoe Kravitz literally says white privilege. You had people literally in their reviews going, I don't like Gordon's black. I don't like that Catwoman's black. We had a mayor who was black. It's so unrealistic. I'm like, a black police chief and a black mayor and a black thief? Like, what? The audacity of these people in an age, and like obviously I already saw people on Twitter bitching about old girl from Raven's Home playing Carrie Kelly, and we're back to the same conversations of old girl from Grownish and fucking Zendaya playing redheads. Oh, we're erasing redheads with black women, and I'm so sick of this.
James, black redheads are a myth.
Apparently black redheads are a myth.
Black people in prominence are also a myth.
Right, like we even had behind the scenes photos of like old girl who's playing Batgirl with red hair, and it's like, oh, that's a myth, right? Like that doesn't exist. But no, especially because we just had like breaking news of Zoe Kravitz being thrown out of the audition for being too urban for Dark Knight Rises because she tried to be Catwoman then. You really are still having this conversation.
To be fair, I think she was playing a smaller role. She wasn't playing Catwoman.
Fair enough, but like even if she was auditioning, like she auditioned for the movie when she was younger, which okay, cool. Even if it wasn't for Catwoman, it's very much the same conversation of why are we acting as if other races can't, like, we've seen 2 other white women on live action movies play Catwoman. We've seen 3 other white women and Eartha Kitt, the goddess herself. If you want to tell me Eartha Kitt it was unworthy of playing Catwoman, we could throw hands right now. But if we're gonna like say Zoe Kravitz isn't allowed to step up and play Selena Kyle, because like you can bitch and moan about Halle Berry all you want, we're not having that conversation. I'm saying for Selena Kyle, if we're gonna have that conversation, then you need to shut up. Because we've had multi-interpretations of Selena Kyle by now. Not only is it allowed for her, I'm going to cut everybody off, and I feel so horrible. But like in general, it's very much like Zoe deserved that shot. Jeffrey deserved that shot because we've had the really like big like old white guy in the Burton movies, and then we had Gary Oldman, and then we had J. Jonah Jameson from Batman v Superman and Justice League. Like, we've had multiple white people play Gordon, and now we have Jeffrey Wright. We've had that time. What's wrong with their performance? Not their skin color, their performance.
James. Why are you asking people who are asking the question, why black people? Because we know the answer.
Sorry.
Anyone who asks the question why black people is clearly has a problem with black people.
Sorry, like you know I got my soapbox because there's gonna be dumbass white people who like want to get mad at me for my house order shit.
The folkin be folkin. You gotta let the white folks do that shit. Like,
all right, I want to say 2 things about this. First of all, if you're making Ben Shapiro mad, you're doing something right.
Yes.
Second of all, it's not just an issue of it's not just a case of there have been black Catwomen before. Of course there have been black Catwomen before. There are moments in this movie, there are shots of Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman in this movie that are literally like panel for panel taken from David Mazzucchelli's art in Batman Year One. Mm-hmm. She looks exactly like Catwoman does in that comic. And like no one has ever looked more accurate to what Catwoman is in like a seminal Batman work as Zoe Kravitz has. Like, if you're talking about comic book accuracy, no one has ever done it better. Like, Selena Kyle in Batman Returns was this blonde secretary. Catwoman's never been that. Zoe Kravitz was way closer to what Catwoman is than anything we've ever seen in a movie before.
Yep.
Right.
I would say, yeah, I'd also say, yeah. I'd similarly say like Oliver Queen, the whole idea of like overcoming that privilege that you were born with. Reckoning. Right.
Right. We're not changing King Arthur, guys.
Right. It just it'd be an interesting motherfucking story. Like, that's what I was saying about that.
Well, that's what Icon is about. It's like, what if Superman was black? What would be like the cultural ramifications?
Hardware right now. Like, it's very much more Iron Man-ish, but in terms of a story of like a person with no superpowers trying to build something, Hardware is more of what happens when a black person puts their money where their mouth is.
Right.
That's what you get.
Yes, Hardware is a black Batman story more than
To the point that if you read Hardware, he literally overcomes white privilege because of the white man plucking him out of poverty, giving him an opportunity, and then him having to face that it was all for the game. The white man didn't give a shit. Like, because if you go back and listen to our Brandon Thomas episode, him and I talk about how literally, like, from the original to the new one, it's almost verbatim of Edward Alva taking him from poverty and putting him up on a pedestal of, hey, look what happens when a black man is given opportunity, but then I can take it away at any moment and make him be a menace to society. That is literally right there on the page, and yet people still want to beat that. Yeah. So that was our little like 2-part rant there. But in terms of the movie as a whole, final verdicts, folks. Travis, I want to hear your heart, bro. Like, if you like, in terms of like, I'll even jack something from TJ, but I'll say out of 10 batarangs instead of 5. I like my round numbers. I like my even numbers. How we doing here?
Honestly, like, for me, this is my favorite Batman movie that we have ever gotten. And I say that because in every other Batman movie we get, it's a lot of, here's the problem, kick, punch, repeat. You know what I mean? And then for the first time, at least in my lifetime, we're seeing Bruce and Batman do a lot of not just like detective work, but we're seeing him have serious internal conflict. And yeah, it involves his original traumas, but we don't have to see the gun firing and pearls hitting the ground 18 fucking times in the movie.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You can make a poignant point about Batman's pain without constantly showing me his trauma, without constantly showing me what he's going through, because I'm watching your movie already. I'm seeing what he's going through. And I think Matt Reeves really took that and just did everything possible to make the audience know everything that was going on with nuance and properly done exposition. And that's just not something we normally get in Batman movies. Normally we get Bruce at the Bat computer talking about what's going on to Alfred and then going and kick punching his way out of the situation. And that didn't happen all the time. Most of this movie was detective work, crime scene investigation.
Yes.
For me, that's what made this the best, because he's the world's greatest detective. You know what I mean? That's what makes Batman Batman. You know what I mean? So that's what made this the perfect Batman movie for me, was actual character arc using very well-loved things about Batman, also including that he's a broken human like the rest of us.
Was that a 10 out of 10? Or how you feeling there, dog?
Shit, man. Let me give it 1,000 tomatoes. I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
Like,
all right. I'll let our guests wrap it up. But like, for me, real quick, it's very much a thing of I'm very much in the same boat as Travis. Like, I have my nitpicks. I'm at a 9 out of 10 Batarang solely because of the fact that, like, there's the little nitpicks here and there, and like I like as great. It's almost personal because like I said, I love John Turturro, but that man got peed on. Like, there's those subtle things of like, no matter how well you do, I've already seen you in your underwear, like in Egypt. Like, we've already been somewhere, John. Like, it hurts. But in terms of like you choking people out and being this threat, it was so good. Like, there's so much good in this movie. I'm so excited to see what's gonna happen in the future. You slipped up with that Joker shit, but we can move past that. Like, I'm gonna say a strong 9 out of 10. You did good, but like, there's room to grow. Alex, how you feeling?
Well, DC Comics employs me, so 10 out of 10. Yeah. They signed my checks. 10 out of 10 Batarangs. Perfect movie. Every Batman movie is perfect. Every Batman comic is perfect. More Batman. I'm an absolute.
There is
Batman
no war in Bossing Say.
It was the year of the Batman. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this movie is perfect. It's the Citizen Kane of movies, which is Citizen Kane is a movie. Yeah, there you go. That's my rate.
That was great. Okay. TJ, how you feeling? We gonna fight. We gonna fight. Mm, mm, mm.
Um,
All
I
right.
would like to express one honest opinion.
Go for
Going
it.
into this movie, yeah,
You
just one.
chill.
Going into this movie, uh, I was very concerned about when and where I was going to go to the bathroom. It's a 3 hour.
Same.
I drink a lot of soda. There was gonna be something I was gonna miss. I was absolutely sure. There was no way I was gonna make it through. Sure enough, I went to the Alamo Draft House where you can like order like soda and popcorn wherever you want, and like someone will bring it to you. I made it through 3 goddamn sodas, and my bladder was like, "Nah, I'm good. I want to see this too." And that I think is the strongest testament to this movie.
I love that. All right. Well, as we always do on the show, like we want to thank y'all for being here. This has been like one of my favorite collabs we've done. I'm excited for to have y'all on again, especially when we start doing more Batman content. I have a couple of
Please,
ideas
I
to throw over.
always say that DC is bigger than Batman, so like I would like to be on stuff that's not just Batman.
Okay,
I've got
okay.
enough Batman from Gotham Outsiders.
Okay. How about this? We do roasts every 15 episodes. What's a really bad DC comic that you'd want to roast? Or like even a DC comic event. Because we've already done Cry for Justice, we did All Star Batman and Robin. Give me something that like we have Amazon's Attack on the list. What's something that you would want to do?
Again, I work for DC. I can't disparage their work.
There's got to be something. There's got to be something you would want to do.
All right, let me think about it.
All right, bet. Sure, go for it. I'm, yo, okay, yo. I do you want me to be 100% honest? Yo, I'm gonna hand you the best book that Matt Reeves can pull from for well, like real quick because like there's only one comic that could rise up after this to challenge it, and it's a Batman book written by none other than Jim Starlin. Does anyone have a shot in the dark of what it is?
The Cult.
Yes! Batman the Cult. It was this is the scariest part. I was 14. This is the first Batman comic I ever read. And because my mother brought it home from the library, like, because she worked at the juvenile hall, and the library donated some Batman books for kids. And like who were at the juvenile hall, and she brought me this Batman book. Didn't read it, didn't look at it, nothing. And I read the scariest piece of Batman material I've ever read in my entire life, and it was Batman the Cult. If Matt Reeves wants to not only because Arkham Knight tried to reference Deacon Blackfire and it was stupid, but like if you wanted to bring remove the Native American shit from him because like that's kind of controversial and Jim Starlin was kind of doing a white man with that. If you wanted
lean into it that like he's appropriating Native American culture.
That's true. That'd be really smooth, especially like because we've had things like Vandal Savage. That would be kind of clean too. If we're gonna do it, like literally have somebody like Deacon Blackfire, and like especially because now with the city being flooded, homeless rate's gonna go up real good. Homeless rate's gonna go up like that, and that's what Deacon Blackfire did. He tapped into the homeless population, and he made the homeless people be the threat against Gotham to the point that Bruce and Jason had to leave the entire city for a hot minute and come back. So if you wanted to make a really scary sequel to give like whatever the fuck Riddler and Joker time to do whatever the fuck they want, Deacon Blackfire, Batman the Colt, and TJ, it's a controversial book. I would love to bring that to the Gotham Outsiders as Batman the Colt, because that is a hell of a read. I've always wanted to analyze it, and it's one of those books. It's one of those books where you got to be able to like hold your stomach, and especially because as a black person, I can come in there and be the sensitivity reader for that one because there is a rough patch in there. It's one of those books where you will love it, but you will also be like, what the fuck is going on?
It's also like,
yes,
it's also like the first time we get like Jason Todd seeing that Batman is human, and
yes,
it's a really interesting thing from Robin's perspective.
and like it's so good because like I think it's after Crisis because it shows like Jason sort of being less of a Dick clone and being more of his own person.
Yes.
And like it's one of those like actual good moments of Jason being Robin where he goes to find Bruce and he finds him at the lowest point of Earth where Bruce is tied up in a sewage like cave full of rats, and Bruce is just saying over and over again, welcome to hell, because he's drugged up and losing his mind, and Jason has to be the one to haul his ass back to the surface. And it's so powerful. So I think that if Matt Reeves can do that and like fill the spot with Gordon or Selina or whoever,
or Robin,
cool.
Why not Robin?
It'd be great. Like I would be down for that. But like, especially with they've kind of laid the groundwork of potential homeless threat. Deacon Blackfire would be the greatest thing to happen to this book, like to this a sequel.
So like where I'm sitting and like where like the movie ended, I would think like a combination, if possible, of like No Man's Land, because it's the hell out. The whole city is.
We've seen
No Man's Land.
Yeah, but have you seen it well?
Fair.
That's the thing, and I want to see like No Man's Land or maybe Tom King's Bane. And I know that's crazy for me to say Tom King out loud and like advocate for that, but his Bane arc was. I like his Bane arc a lot, and I
Travis,
think
you're on thin ice. You're on thin ice.
Whatever. I already broke up with DC and Batman. Okay, you can't hurt me no more.
Like we all know Tom King needs to be crucified. Why are you bringing his name in this courthouse? Like
because his Bane was pretty good. So
that's the only thing about his run. Like because there was somebody that was say one good thing about like horrible comic things like Heroes in Crisis and Tom King's Batman. I was like, his Bane. And the first, and then his first issue where Bruce asks Alfred, "Is this a good death?" Yeah. Other than that, burn the whole thing. Kick him out, never bring him back. Like, just no. When I saw recently he was writing another Batman book, I was like, no. Why do you keep doing this to yourself? No.
Oh yeah,
that was good. That was good. Right, especially that was the worst part was that annual got you comfy. It made you think that like Selina was gonna be there, and then this man had the audacity to ruin people's marriages because literal people went to comic shops and got dressed up as Selina and Bruce, had wedding cakes ordered, had the whole shebang popped off, and look, this man said
weddings have been ruined for at the last minute at the altar for decades. Look
right.
But Dick Grayson and Starf. That's on them.
True. But like,
do not blame Tom King for that.
I'm not gonna blame Tom King for that, but I'm saying like that annual gave people the hope. That annual was so powerful. How like she's there at the end. You have like even Duke, Dick, Barbara, everybody at Bruce's side, and Selina's there with him at the end. And
I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I think it's another podcast discussion.
Yes.
I would just like to give my thoughts about this question about like what Batman arc I would
go for it. Sorry, but go ahead.
And I would do Bruce Wayne murderer. Yeah. Bring in David Kane. Bring in goddamn Sacha Bordeaux, one of the most underrated Batman characters ever. Bring in Cassandra. Why not? Just like have this story where like Bruce built up this identity. He's finally able to trying to make a go of it as his own self, and then to suddenly have that ruined and taken away from him. Like, but I just learned that this was important to me. So, and having to like value what Bruce Wayne means through that. And like you could tie into the third movie that way with like, oh, you know who hired David Kane? Beware the Court of Owls, who watches all the time. Yeah, I feel like that would be a great way, a great direction to go in, and B, a way to give me the Cassandra Kane I desire.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that's all I want. I want to go.
Right. Fair enough. Well, folks, I don't know if y'all know this, but we have a annual thing where everyone gives a closing statement for this for the episode. So, TJ, what is your closing statement for this episode of Panel to Panel? Or like anything, like your experience in terms of like if you want to plug anything, if you want to talk about the movie a little bit more, whatever you want. Fair enough. Okay. Also, Nicholas Hoult is still in the doghouse because he thought he was too pretty to be Beast. Anyway, Travis, what is your closing statement for this episode of Panel to Panel?
In the middle, I think I kind of solidified what I'd like to see for the next movie, and that's Dave Bautista breaking Andy Serkis's neck. So,
oh my god,
Matt Reeves, if you hear me, please.
Why Dave Bautista?
because Bane breaks Alfred's neck, and who's a better...
we need an up and coming Spanish fella to be Bane. We don't need Dave Bautista. Like, come on,
give him a chance to be a little grimdark and serious. From Drax to that's range. I need it.
Anyway, Alex, what will be your closing statement for this episode of Panel to Panel? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to shout out? Like, whatever.
Yeah, check out the Ask the Question column on DCComics.com. I'm writing good stuff over there. My own podcast is Insert Credit, where I ask the smartest people in video games the stupidest questions I can think of.
Ooh.
And Dave Bautista should be Hugo Strange, not Bane.
Okay, my closing statement, as always, is folks, please support your local comic book shop. If you like, obviously, in terms of a couple recommendations, I can do on the top of my head, and like these guys can shout some out too. In terms of decent Batman books, we could obviously shout out Batman Year One. Like is a good one. Long Halloween, Hush. There's great Batman books that are like that there's stuff taken from them from this movie that you can go to your local comic book shop and pick up to support them. If you buy that graphic novel, it can definitely be a great thing for them. So please do. Even if you like, and I say this all the time. If you're a digital reader, talk to your comic book shop. They more like even with Comixology's recent changes that are kind of not like horrible, there's still probably a storefront that you can find a way to support your local comic book shop. Do not give up on them just yet. They're still here. They still have a way to go. So support them, please do. And pre-orders books that you know are coming out. That way they get the support, because especially for indie books, those are the only way that those stay published. So make sure you're doing that. Don't forget, folks, that you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, YouTube, all those great places, except for SoundCloud, because we don't support SoundCloud in here. You can also follow us on Twitter at PTP_podcast, and get ready for more episodes, because Mary will be back next week and we will be having some more fun. I'm trying to figure out what next week's going to be. It might be a news week depending on what we get, or it might just be a really fun book. I haven't figured it out yet, but get ready for that. We will catch you folks next time right here at Panel to Panel. Peace out.